Our story starts with very heavy breathing right in the heart of the action. A controversial team of mercenaries operating without regard for human life have failed to maintain their secrecy, prompting the army to move against them, leading to dire consequences. Moments later, the team wipes out the army's entire squad except for one lone soldier, who quickly calls his commanders to inform them of the situation. Before he could get a proper response from command, he sees a huge explosion right in front of him, a harbinger of doom and of the arrival of the squadron to his location, which leads to his immediate gory execution. Some civilian doctors and soldiers managed to survive and were trying to escape on a military helicopter that had just arrived. But Tao, the technical member of the deadly squad, sends the plane's coordinates to Takeo, who effortlessly ends all their lives. After all the commotion, Kranz, the leader of this deadly group, finally emerges. We are also introduced to Shark and Hammer, the lowest-ranking fighters on the team, who gain satisfaction from their grisly deeds, whether it's part of the plan or not. Plus Tao, the tech-savvy technician, and Takeo, the veteran warrior, and now you've met our mercenaries. Their leader Kranz has news. The team has a new mission, and it's in Japan. A new day has started and school is back in session. Chan, a silly ginger boy with an injured arm, sets out for school accompanied by his friend Manabu. Along the way, we learn that Chan injured his arm while saving his friend from a car accident. He asks Manabu to write his schoolwork for him as a way of returning the favor. Upon arriving at the school, the boys notice a commotion. All the girls are gathered around a security guard, drooling. Apparently they found his weird scarred-up face attractive. You know they say girls love a man in uniform. Well, it has to be the uniform cause it's not the face. In the school building, two suspicious-looking men watch from a distance and discuss the success of their memory wipe. We get a small backstory on the security guard. Apparently he used to work for the Union as a lab rat, but he disobeyed their orders and had to escape. The school's owner found him, and after consulting Franken, his right-hand man, he decides to hire the guard and give him a place to stay as he has superpowers and isn't fully human. Back to Chan, his crew are teasing him about his injured hand and drawing pics and naughty words on his cast. Then a mysterious boy named Rai pops up and draws a cute kitty cat on Chan's cast, attempting to be funny. Fail. Well, Rai is not an ordinary student living with the headmaster, but he is somehow the headmaster Franken's master. He comes to class in disguise and tries to learn more about the human world. You see, he has spent many years in hibernation, and he hardly knows anything about current events or how our world works. I think his red eyes are a dead giveaway that bro is not one of us. At the end of the school day, Headmaster Franken is standing with the security discussing his first day on the job. Rai walks over and gives a long speech, which basically comes down to him needing a cell phone. Everyone wants an iPhone. The next day, Ray had one of the newest cell phones in the country, which of course drew all the teens' attention. They quickly get him caught up to modern technology and he apps like a pro. Later, our silly ginger clumsy Chan makes the mistake of flirting with some random chick. Her dude bro boyfriend pulls up in a muscle car looking for a fight. He sends some of his men to start searching for Chan. As soon as they arrive, some of the workers try to defend the boy, but the girl's boyfriend is a real macho man who knocks down all who stand up to him. Chan himself comes out and bravely confronts Mr. Macho, but he and his loser crew beat the brakes off that boy. Broken arm and all, they'd bust his cast and bust his ribs too. An old janitor tries to intervene but gets lifted by his collar. At the sight of this, the new guard can't hold back any longer and steps up to defend the boys and his colleague, and he does so with ease, bringing the baddie to his knees and whispers ever so softly that Macho Man is lucky there are witnesses, as that's the only reason he's still alive. Damn. That night, as he reflects upon his past, the guard remembers what his life used to be like when he was a member of the Union. He and all his peers were test tube babies, cruelly treated and used as lab rats every day of their existence. They were also used to carry out missions, and none were even given the dignity of a name. They were all just experiments for the Union. Luckily, the security guard also remembers his only friend within that organization who was also a lab rat called M24, and they had promised each other that they would not rest until they knew their names and those of their fallen comrades. The guard has kept that promise to this day, which still gives him hope. Elsewhere in Japan, Kranz and his mercenaries have finally arrived, and they all have the same question: what are we supposed to do in this strange country? Their mission this time is different, no fighting or weapons, but a first-class investigative mission, as the Union had originally sent two of its operators, Jake and Mary, to retrieve somebody's coffin, till all communications were cut off and contact has not resumed. Kranz and his crew's mission is clear: figure out what happened and find the two missing operators. Two other high-level investigators have also been sent to Japan to get to the bottom of the disappearances. They are looking into the issue of humans trying to acquire superpowers, and from the first glimpse, we see that one of their powers is mind control. They examine a crime scene and make it clear that they come to take care of the matter in their own way. Schools are one of the best places to mingle with the locals, so the two operators go undercover as school kids and immediately head to the school. At the gates, the guard, who we'll call M21, spots them arriving late. M21 immediately notices their bright red eyes and odd behavior. It's hard to miss as those two look like demonic albinos. He realizes that they are not normal humans and feels that they have superhuman strength, but the guard doesn't let on that he knows their secret and ushers the duo into Franken's office. As soon as Franken sees them, he realizes that they are not normal humans and that they have superpowers like Rai, his master disguised as a student. He dismisses M21 and introduces himself as the person in charge. He feels their power and informs his master of their arrival. Then Franken sends the two students to his master's classroom. The two introduce themselves as Regis and Sarah, and after being eyeballed and admired by most of the class, the duo turn their attention to Rai, who has an aura that suggests he too has superhuman strength. We learn that they can communicate telepathically. The teacher instructs our ginger friend Chan to show them around, much to the jealousy of his classmates. After class, Chan shows them where the cafeteria is and how to buy food. We also see Ray's obsession with ramen. After the end of the school day, Franken and M21 head home together. On the way, they discuss the Milky Exchange students. M21 mentions that he felt their strange superpowers. He starts explaining to Franken who these vampire-looking students are. The kind of power they have is called noble, and so are they. Franken too has heard of them and gives a more detailed explanation. Apparently, the origins of their power comes from ancient times, before the discovery of current technology and military power, where humans lived in constant fear of natural phenomena, fear of things stronger than them, fear of predators that may eat them, fear of every damn thing. Basically, we used to be the scaredy cat coward species. Then out of nowhere, new beings appeared that resembled humans in every way except that they had superhuman strength, a strength greater than predators and greater than natural disasters. Humans called them nobles. I call them skinwalkers. Nobles are far more powerful than humans, but despite this, they were never hostile to humans. They protected them from any danger and never harmed them. Simply put, they saw us as babies and they were our mamas. After that breakdown, M21 still had a few questions, like if the nobles are really that good, they must be here for a good reason too. He also wants to know if the master and Franken are nobles or not, but Franken just evades the question. After school, Chan and some other students come over to Ray's place to play some games and hang out, but are shocked to find that the security guard is also staying at the principal's house. The overpowered albinos are there too, and since they haven't yet settled on a place to stay, Chan has the audacity to suggest they stay at the principal's mansion, which, no surprise, M21 doesn't approve of, as he is staying there, trying to keep a low profile. Franken finds himself in a difficult situation. On the one hand, he can refuse to let Sarah and Regis stay, but that will arouse their suspicions, and on the other hand, their stay can cause trouble for him personally. Rai, the actual master of the home, agrees to let them stay, much to the guard's chagrin. That evening, Sarah sneaks up on Franken and M21 under the pretext of offering to help them with housework. She sees the Union tattoo on the guard's wrist and, without thinking, relays this information to Regis. Based on these revelations, Regis later tracks M21 to a place relatively far from the others, and that's where their confrontation begins. Regis is desperate to find out what happened a month ago when the coffin disappeared, but M21 assures him that some nutcase stole the coffin and was excommunicated, therefore he has nothing to hide. Unfortunately, that information is not enough for Regis, who goes rabid and begins to attack M21. Unusually, the guard fends him off and even manages to fight back, but Regis soon overpowers him and knocks him down. Before he can finish him off, Sarah telepathically communicates with him that some bullies have intercepted and kidnapped the teens, hoping to avenge their friends who were hurt by M21 on his first day. When Regis and M21 arrive at the scene of the fight, they see something they never could have imagined. Chan, without any assistance, starts kicking butts and taking names. He kung-fus the hell out of those grown men. until the leader pulls a shooter and aims for Chan's head. M21 steps in and stops the fight. Chan chases the gangsters away and threatens them that if any of them approach his friends ever again, there will be hell to pay. The fight leaves Regis in a state of shock as he thought that humans were weak little beings who could not fight and must rely on the nobles to save them. He politely calls humans savages. But M21 bluntly tells him that humans can fight if they find the right reasons. We aren't titty babies crying for them to mommy us. Of course, he also took the opportunity to mock the nobles who think they are the only ones with courage. He threatens to eliminate Regis if he ever calls him a modified human again. The scene ends with them threatening each other in hilarious ways. A new day starts with Regis and M21 squabbling like spoiled little rich girls over room size and food portions and offing each other. Kranz's team finally arrived at the place where the looted coffin was located. The official police story is some psycho went on a rampage, but based on the extensive destruction left by the conflict, Tao concludes that the conflict must have been between two non-human groups. After further research, Tao came to his own conclusion. He discovered that Jake and Mary did reach the coffin's location, but they encountered test subjects M21 and M24. M24 infected a passerby with some disease that made him insane. This got the police off their trail as they had found the perfect scapegoat for the crime without having to dig too deep. That way, the police could easily return to the very difficult task of eating donuts. After gathering this information, Kranz told his group that they had to find M21 and M24, and anyone who sees them has to arrest them without hesitation, assuming they were still alive. At school the next day, M21 is still feeling a little strange about being in a world he doesn't know much about and tries to start a conversation with Rai asking how he feels, but Rai doesn't answer and just walks away. Chan is still recuperating from the wounds he sustained in the fight, and his friend accuses him of picking fights just to get Sarah's attention. Chan quickly dismisses the idea, explaining that he doesn't need attention from a random foreign colorless girl. Chan also discovers that his friend Manabu is heart-eyes cuckoo crazy for weirdo Regis's ashy bum. Strange. During recess, Regis and Sarah go to the top of the building to meet with M21. Isn't a friendly meeting, but a threatening one with threats coming from Regis, who tells M21 that he doesn't like and doesn't trust mutants. M21 keeps his composure and tells Regis that he is just a security guard who has to do the rounds to protect the school and its students. He also tells Regis that he has seen him and Sarah out and about after dark more than once, which is clearly forbidden by school rules as they are minors. If it were to happen again, he would have to report them. M21 wasn't the only one worried about these two alabaster weirdos. Rai also shared the same concern and asked Franken to do a detailed background search on them, but all the results were reassuring that they were not a danger to the public. Back at Manabu's house, Chan is visiting and starving with hunger, but Manabu has no time to play Chef Ramsay as he was busy doing security checks for his uncle and researching who had hacked into his servers. Manabu didn't know that it was technical maestro Tao, Kranz's mercenary technician, so Manabu keeps throwing firewalls at him, thinking that his counterpart was just an amateur trying to hack into any server and didn't enter that particular server for a specific purpose. After several hack attempts by both of them, the two admire each other's abilities. Unfortunately, Chan's recklessness causes him to trip near the laptop, pulling the charger, and that cuts their connection. Manabu walks out the room to report to his uncle, and Chan accidentally sees Teo's messages to Manabu. Being a nosy bugger, instead of distancing himself from the conversation, he decides to reply. Thinking it was a girl who liked Manabu, he asks for her age and name, but is shocked to find out that it's a man on the other side of the screen. A stunned Chan is freaked and doesn't know what to do, but he quickly recovers and remembers that Manabu is the homie guy or girl lover they are and will remain best buds. Manabu soon realizes that Chan is clan slamming him and kicks him off his computer. Tao, on the other hand, has given up on Manabu responding, so he decides to continue his search, and as luck would have it, he already has photos of M21 and knows his location thanks to the school's cameras. Kranz sends Shark and Hammer to arrest him immediately. Everyone thinks that M21 is still in this place because he needs to complete some kind of mission. No one realizes that the only thing keeping him there is the promise he made to his friend M24. At mealtime, M21 and Regis are threatening each other with elimination as per usual. Franken interrupts their spat and puts them all to work. Clean up the house now, you dirty boys. Later, Franken opens a bank account for M21 and asks him to do the dishes when home. Deep in thought, M21 contemplates his life. Once he was a lab rat, a failure, treated with zero respect. Now he lives just like any other person. Life is a funny, sad conundrum. As he walks home, he is met by Shark and Hammer, who, as we know, are part of the Union's special forces, and were waiting for him. M21 immediately recognizes them. Shark gets straight to the point. Surrender now and come with us, or risk being eliminated like the trash he is. Damn, that's brutal. At first, M21 decides to surrender as he knows that he is inferior to them. But his attitude soon changes after Shark insults M24, so M21 decides to engage him in an unequal fight. Shark slices and dices, inflicting severe injuries that almost excommunicate our security guard. Just in time, Regis and Sarah, our alabaster vamps, arrive on the scene. Regis uses his super sharp wit to emotionally cut them to pieces. Lil Bro is freaking hilarious and quick with the insults, body shaming the mercenaries without a second thought. Before things really get out of hand, Kranz jumps into the scene and scolds Shark, telling him the orders were to capture the guard, not kill him, because their mission is only to gather intelligence. After much thought, M21 decides to surrender to Kranz's forces and use them to gather his own intelligence and maybe learn his real name and the names of his colleagues, as he had promised M24. Although Regis doesn't agree with letting M21 go, Sarah convinces him that it's best for everyone to leave these things behind and focus on their goal and the mission they came for in the first place. Tao resumes his hacking attempts, but this time it's not his only goal. He's trying to continue his hacking battle against his mysterious rival Manabu. They meet again on the Union servers, and Tao is surprised to learn the true age of his rival, realizing that he is just a boy and that he lives close by. This excites Tao, who tells Manabu they may meet up soon. As Franken sits quietly with Rai, happily enjoying his tea and the peace and quiet far away the noise of the school and the students. The silence is interrupted by Regis and Sarah storming in. Regis is visibly agitated and doesn't want to explain the situation to Franken. He keeps repeating that he's been deceived by a lowly guard and that he has to be more careful with humans so that he won't be put in a situation like that again. After Regis storms off, Franken asks Sarah what the heck is going on. She explains the situation to him with a smile. She mentions that some men attacked M21 and beat him up. When Regis tried to help him, the guard refused and left with the Union's men. This is why Regis feels that it's the Union that sent M21 in the first place and that this was all an elaborate plan. Regis isn't the only one upset by this. Franken also begins to suspect that the Union may have planted M21 at their school to uncover the truth about Franken and Rai. While they were doubting him, M21 was in the custody of Kranz's men, being tortured and forced to confess everything he knew about the coffin and its whereabouts. But M21 remains steadfast and will not snitch, even under the constant torture he receives from Shark. The guard refuses to speak. Finally, after seeing the desperation in Kranz and his men, he realizes that he is their only lead and that none of them would risk taking him out, and this is his chance. Then Kranz joins Shark in threatening M21. He threatens to inject him with a truth serum that will either make him confess or may even take his life. M21 decides to cooperate with them, but only in exchange for the names of his fellow lab rats in order to fulfill his promise to his friend M24. At first, Kranz's men refuse to let the guard dictate the terms, as he is helplessly shackled in front of them. But Kranz agrees to the terms and asks Tao to start hacking into the Union servers to get the information that M21 needs. But that isn't our guard's only request. He also asks for food, and not the fast food garbage that Hammer eats all day long. He wants ramen. At school, the students notice M21's disappearance, but no one knows what's happened to him. They ask Regis and Sarah, but they deny having any knowledge of the situation. Regis is still grumpy AF. The teens arrange a get-together for the next day. Early the next day, Chan asks Sarah to go shopping with him, and she agrees. While they are shopping, Manabu meets up with Tao, and they get into a deep emo conversation, filled with understanding and mutual respect and admiration. Chan sees some thugs robbing a man who seems unable to stand up to them. He asks Sarah to wait for him while he tries to intervene. After eliminating the thieves, we find out that the man they were trying to rob is Takio, one of Kranz's men, but of course, Chan doesn't know any of this. Takio thanks him and says that they remind him of his younger sister who might be exactly the same age as them, and after they chat for a while, Chan and Sarah leave him and go back to Ray's mansion where Sarah lives. Back to M21, he is still being tortured. especially by Shark, who keeps threatening to break his neck and repeats that he isn't as weak as Takeo, who pities his victims. But Takeo loses his composure when Shark mentions his sister, who is being held by the Union to force Takeo to work for them. He threatens Shark with a gun, but Teo intervenes. Shark is a true psycho sadist. Shark decides to widen his search to force M21 to talk, so he searches for the teens from the night they found M21. He quickly finds Regis and decides to use him to manipulate M21 before eliminating them all. He confronts Regis, but Shark is surprised to find that Regis is a noble. Regis is quick with the verbal attacks and even quicker with his physical prowess. And indeed, the fight is all in Regis' favor even after Shark swallows some pills to make him bigger, faster, stronger, and uglier. I didn't even think that the last part could be possible. In the end, Regis is forced to surrender after Hammer easily captures Chan and Manabu. He threatens to eliminate them if Regis doesn't do what they say. Shark takes his captives to the Union's headquarters and asks all the members to come immediately to see what he has done. The crew is stunned when they see who Shark has brought in. No one can believe that a man as powerful as Regis can be overcome so easily. Even when Regis tries to free himself from his shackles, he can't, and Shark keeps mocking him for his weakness. Those shackles are specially made for people like Regis. Damn, I hate Shark. I hope he gets a painful end. When Regis sees M21 standing there watching him, he mistakenly thinks that the security guard really was working with the Union and that this was all planned from the start. Sarah, back at the house, knows that Regis is in danger because she lost her telepathic link, and that only happens if Regis should lose consciousness or worst case scenario his life. After sharing her fears with Franken and Rai confirms her story as Chan and Manabu have not shown up either, which confirms the fact that they are in danger, but Rai decides to wait and not intervene until things get FUBAR, as the army puts it. In the meantime, Manabu and Chan wake up, and as soon as they see the mercenaries, they try to understand just what is happening and how on earth did they end up there. There is much confusion as Shark is under the impression that Regis and M21 are friends. Meanwhile, Chan recognizes Takeo, and of course, Manabu calls out to Tao. Unfortunately, Tao cannot acknowledge their friendship in front of the rest of the team. It's all very confusing and heartbreaking. Sadist Shark is enjoying every moment of their suffering. Sarah doesn't wait for any assistance and starts her own search for Regis. After scanning most of the city, she finally manages to find him, but she can't understand what brings him to this suspicious place, and his signal has become faint, indicating that his strength is weakened. At the same time, Shark is determined to get information about what happened to the coffin from M21, but he still refuses to talk. Shark begins to beat up Chan and Manabu, who are no match for a mercenary as skilled as Shark. While things are tense and everyone is on edge, Hammer decides to go get more food so he can really enjoy this sadistic beatdown of teenagers. Shark starts torturing Chan since M21 won't talk, but the guard coldly tells him that what he's doing won't make him talk, as Chan and Manabu are just two kids he met while working at the school and they don't know anything about him. Regis refuses to let Shark unalive Chan and Manabu and stands up for them against Shark. But of course his restraints make him powerless and easy prey to Shark's attacks, who takes full advantage of the opportunity and keeps beating the helpless Regis. It's like watching baby seals getting clubbed, painfully depressing. After Hammer finds more food to fill his obese stomach so he can further enjoy watching his friend torture some children, he happens to see Sarah, who casually walks through the door looking for Regis. Hammer tries to stop her with some craftily thrown bombs, but Sarah shows her true strength and knocks him down after she slits his swollen belly and of course his tray of freshly found food. Downstairs, Shark is still fighting Regis, who can't touch Shark due to his restraints, until Chan steps in and delivers a powerful punch to Shark's face that makes Shark determined to liquidate them all. At the last moment, M21 decides to break his promise to his fellow test tube babies and quickly intervenes, delivering a shark-clawing blow to Shark that knocks him off his feet. While Takeo is upstairs trying to figure out where those explosions Hammer made came from, he realizes that his enemy is not Sarah, but Ray himself and Franken, who have also decided to join the party and take part in the fight. At first, Takeo thinks Franken is relatively weak based on his unimposing appearance, but he soon realizes that Franken is basically invincible. The building is divided into 3 fights, all taking place at the same time. The first fight is Franken versus Takeo, which takes place at the top of the building. On the next floor, Sarah's fight with Hammer continues, more provoked by the loss of his gluttonous meal than by what she's done to him. The final and most intense fight is between the rest of Cran's team, particularly Shark and M21, who finally decides to confront Shark with all his might. At first, M21 keeps beating Shark with no response until it's Shark's turn to fight back and M21 is forced to defend his friends, the teens, which leaves him badly wounded and raspberry foaming all over the place. Watching this all go down gives Regis the push to break his shackles. He intervenes and starts beating Shark into unconsciousness, but the biggest surprise is that Kranz himself enters the fight, and he comes prepared, taking pills that add to his strength, pills that make him bigger, stronger, and more lethal. After Kranz swells up, Shark stands next to him, thinking that he will finally fight alongside his master. If only he knew the bitter truth, which is that Kranz will literally absorb him and his boosted strength and life energy in order to power up even more. That was the whole intention of him drugging his men in the first place. Damn cold world. I know I was rooting for Shark to have a painful ending, but this twist blew my mind and left me pitying the sick sadist. Oh damn, the twists make my stomach turn. Anyway, back to the fight. And so Kranz becomes a giant melanated monster that blocks energy blows like a young Mike Tyson in his prime. Kranz is untouchable. Regis can't land a single punch and gets thrown around like a pit bull playing with a meaty bone. Kranz remains unharmed, and a single one of his powerful punches causes Regis's eyes to roll back and he coughs up a raspberry-colored drooling mess. Dan's son. Watching this go down, M21 attempts to get to his feet to fight, but his injuries overwhelm him and he falls to the ground again. At that moment, their last hope walks through the door. Rai, who still retains his full strength and has not revealed it to anyone, enters the basement. Everyone is shocked to see Rai. They are expecting a stronger hero, and up until that point, as already mentioned, Rai hasn't revealed his true strength. The kids even ask him just what on earth he's doing there. Ha, ha, soft burn. But seriously, he is saving y'all lives. Show some gratitude, baby. After Rai makes this dramatic entrance, Kranz thinks he is easy prey just like everyone else, but as soon as he tries to attack Rai, he finds himself utterly powerless. He is paralyzed and Rai tells him that he shouldn't move or even speak a word unless he gives him permission to do so. Tao is also lying paralyzed. At the same time, Sarah is still practicing her favorite new hobby of hitting Hammer, who moves with difficulty thanks to his overweight and obese belly due to the junk food he constantly stuffs himself with. Sarah manages to easily overpower and abuse him. She summons a soul weapon called Death Sight, which, as indicated by its name, inflicts so much torment on those who touch it that no human can endure. They suffer greatly until elimination. On top of the building, Franken is toying with Takio. Takio is basically helpless against Franken invincibility. At first, Franken hesitated about revealing his true capabilities, but as soon as Takio mentioned harming Rai, Franken lost all inhibitions and went buckwild. Franken doesn't enjoy an easy fight and keeps demanding that Takio hit him back, but Takio is convinced that this is his divine punishment, his retribution for all the innocent people he has sent to the underworld. Until he remembers his sister, protecting her was his reason for still being in the Union. That becomes his turning point, and Takio seems to power up and really starts fighting Franken, who is impressed by this dramatic turn of events. While Franken is enjoying his fight, Rai is still tormenting Kranz, who quickly realizes that he is much weaker than Rai, so he needs to gain extra strength. He commands Tao to take the pills so he can absorb his strength, thinking that this would be the easiest way to beat Rai, not realizing that Rai is one of the strongest fighters in the world, if not the strongest, and this is just a light training session for him to complete as warm-up before a real battle. Tao immediately agrees to help his master Kranz despite Nanabu's crying and repeated warnings. Tao's only excuse is that he is a modified human, specifically modified to follow his master's orders and cannot disobey him. Back to the conflict between Franken and Takio. Franken decides to eliminate him, as Franken's power far exceeds that of his opponent. Takio accepts his fate as he has done his best. Just before Franken can finish him off, Sarah arrives and comments that Franken is not just a principal, nor is he human. Franken replies that she must be a high-ranking noble as she carries a soul weapon. Checkmate, cutie. After some deliberation, Franken decides to spare Takio after hearing that Chan had helped him. As for Tao, he realizes that this is a golden opportunity to abandon Kranz and the team that treats him so harshly. He decides to surprise Kranz with a quick attack and then attempts to run. Kranz catches him easily and is about to absorb him, but thanks to Rai's quick intervention that freezes him. Kranz is stupefied, literally. He cannot believe that Rai has paralyzed him again. Rai decides to teach him a lesson that he will surely forget because he won't be around to remember it. He activates a new power called Blood Control Power and ends Kranz easily. It looks like 1,000 women got their periods at the same time. Just a red flow extravaganza. Period power activate. The next day, M21 wakes up to find himself in a comfortable bed with his wounds tended to. On the bed next to him, Takeo is sleeping, also bandaged up. Neither of them knows who cared for them or how they even got there. Franken comes to inform Rai that the men have woken up, but he gets a fright as Rai is coughing up raspberry foam from overuse of his power. What frightens Franken even more is his fear that Rai will punish him for using his powers without permission, but Rai forgives him easily. We love a bromance. At the dinner table, Teo is super impressed by the extravagant meal. Regis and M21 shared their usual hateful banter, which was surprising to the others, but I've come to enjoy their love-hate relationship. After dinner, M21 stands on the balcony doing a Bruno Mars impression by staring at the moon and being all emo and depressed. He hates himself for betraying the promise he made to his friends and putting the teens in danger. He doesn't realize that Rai is standing behind him. To motivate and uplift his depressive bum, Rie shows him his true strength and bro is a freaking werewolf. Didn't see that coming. And 21 is left as shocked as we are. At the same time, Takeo is having a catch-up sesh with Tao. He is sickened to hear that Kranz kept them around as future fuel for his power. That cannibalistic freak show. They discuss hacking the Union server and planting false info to make it appear as if they lost their lives. In that way, they'll be forever free from the Union's control and domination. As M21 returns to his room, he overhears Tao telling Takeo that he has searched the server's records for his sister and was surprised to find out that he has no sister, that the Union has tampered with his memories so that they could use him as a soldier indefinitely. After learning this shocking truth, he wants to run away with Tao. The following morning, Teo informs M21 that he went searching for any trace of information concerning the test subjects and their records. Unfortunately, all relevant documents have been deleted. Sorry, bro. The guys head out to leave, but M21 asks Franken if Takeo and Tao may remain in the home with them. Rai agrees, and Franken reminds M21 that this is his home too as well as theirs, and he does not need permission to stay there or have guests. Everyone finally fully recovers after a few weeks of therapy, which Chan spent reading obscure mangas that are not as enjoyable as the ones we bring to you, our beloved subscribers, on our channel. Since Franken is the principal and Ray the owner of the school, they decide to recruit Tao and Takeo to join M21 as the school's security team, ensuring the school's protection and providing Tao and Takeo with jobs after they escaped the Union, which is now under the false impression that those two were eliminated while searching for the coffin. Chan struggles a bit with all these Giga Chad security guards at the school, and with mysterious Rai at his side, he becomes the ugly friend who gets no loving or attention from any girl. No one will take one for the team and hook up with him. After much thought, he acknowledges his affection for Sarah, but she doesn't show any interest, so he asks Ray to help him get his Riz up as Ray's Riz is at maximum level. Rai promises to school him in the art of seduction. Kinda weird cause Rai is ancient and these are kids, but okay. As Rai is mostly occupied doing his favorite thing, eating delicious ramen, and also can be too mysterious and often terrifying, Chan decides to ask the security guards for help, as the schoolgirls seem to flock to them like seagulls to French fries. When everyone realizes that Chan and the teens need help with their love lives, they all try to escape. And 21 has no interest, so he tries to convince the teens to exclude him from the operation. When they hear that Chan wants Sarah, all three guards are shocked at his boldness, causing them to rush away only to be stopped by Rai himself asking them to help him. Tao offers to take them to a romantic disco where they can spend time alone while Takeo tries to show him how to charm a woman, but of course none of these ideas are helpful at all. Takeo and Tao are assassins who don't know anything else in life beyond that. Bros have Riz, but no skills. Not having much choice, they head to Franken's office, who keeps talking about his many women and all his love affairs in the past, but this fails to give Chan any real information that can help him win Sarah's heart. So Chan has to go to his last resort, which is Regis. Since Regis is Sarah's companion and accompanies her all over, he would surely know her better than anyone else. But Regis' responses are as cold as his colorless face, and he tells him that he doesn't know anything about Sarah and that they only traveled together. As usual, M21 provokes him, saying Regis is freaking useless, and of course, an aggressive argument ensues, interrupted only by the entrance of Rai, who ordered Regis to help Chan with his relationship with Sarah. Regis immediately falls to his knees and agrees. Rai's so powerful, a simple order is like a command from a king. Regis' stupid suggestion was for Chan to write Sarah a letter as if we are in the Stone Age. Of course, everyone present had no idea what to write and the suggestions weren't helpful at all. No wonder there are so many insults these days. I can't stop laughing. Asking a powerful noble about her age, condition, or favorite color is not a serious plan. Besides, it's the 21st century. Who still sends letters? Ever heard of WhatsApp or DMs? The new plan after all previous plans have failed is to parade Chan in front of her on the basketball court. Chan doesn't know anything about basketball, but the plan is for everyone to help him look like a hero in front of Sarah, who is also on the court. But what happens is not what was planned. The animosity between Regis and M21 explodes on the court, and they use the game to get revenge on each other, as Chan just stands by crying while the others show off. Masculinity mask off. When he finally gets the ball and tries to impress Sarah, Takeo intervenes and blocks his shot, using the last second to score, which impresses all the girls and ruins yet another plan to make Sarah fall in love with Chan. As Chan was dragging his tail in disappointment after failing miserably to make Sarah even see he exists, Manabu tries to console him with the excuse that he did everything he could, but it's hard to compete in the presence of literal superheroes. Sarah walks up to them, having found one of Chan's love letters on her desk. She tells him that the best way to attract her is to just be himself, and that it makes no sense to write her a letter, which is crazy and backward behavior that only comes from people who watch Korean dramas. Lol. Anyway, Chan is just happy to see Sarah smile at him. Chan heads with Manabu to Ra's mansion. He is ecstatic, but as soon as he enters, he hears some terribly shocking news. Rai will erase their memories, as humans should not know about the existence of nobles and supernatural people. When Chan objects to this, Rai tells him that this won't be the first time he erases their memories. He erased them last time they saw him fight monsters, and it was successful as none of them remembered. We don't remember that happening either. Did you erase ours too? Chan's only regret is losing his memories of Sarah. The rest of the memories are worthless to him. Sadly, Rai does the Men in Black thing and erases all their memories again. The next day, Chan and Manabu head to school, and neither of them recognize the guards. They also think that Rai is a student just like them, which confirms to Rai that their memories were successfully erased. What a downer. Things at the school return to the way they were before. Funny enough, it's just the calm before the storm. Things won't continue this way. The biggest issue for now is that Sarah doesn't care about Chan's teenager troubles when she's one of the most powerful nobles around. Important to know is Sarah and Regis are from a noble clan. They have a clan leader. Of course, their mission was to get information about the coffin and report back, but they got caught up in unforeseen events. So in the middle of a random school day, Mr. Gejutel shows up at the school, but the guards quickly stop him and question his presence. Before things get out of hand, Regis and Sarah come to the front and drop to their knees before their clan leader. Gejutel is also Regis' granddaddy. Franken comes to greet Gejutel and seems to know the Silver Fox well. Hi Zaddy. This isn't just a passing visit, but Gejutel refuses to speak in front of the stupid guards who, in his opinion, disrespected his authority. Go off, Cartman. We leave the school and what happens in it for a little while and head to some castle somewhere where the leader is a lord who is also a lady. This is the title given to the leader of all the clans of the country. She gathers all the chiefs and assures them that she intends to punish Sarah and Regis for their extreme inaction and unavailability. For the first time, we learn the truth about this mysterious coffin. It belongs to a nobleman who used to live with them, but he betrayed them, abandoned them, and fled. So the lady who is a lord wants to recover the coffin and punish the traitor to make an example of him. Two clan leaders named Karias and Rajak discuss the matter of Regis and Sarah's failure. They both have a different opinion on whether the vampire kids should be punished or not. They are interrupted by the younger brother of Rajak named Ryle, a spicy little pale fella who seems to be crushing hard on Sarah. Well, get in line, little boy. Chan wants a taste of that too. Ryle seems to have zero respect for authority and apparently just got released for being imprisoned. So I think we are in for a spicy adventure with that little pale boy. Not only were things getting crazy in Lucadonia, But also back at school, things were heating up. Gedjutel, the clan leader of the Landiger clan, immediately realizes upon seeing Ray that he is the coffin dweller who has betrayed the kingdom. Surprise. Rai keeps it real and asks just what has happened in the kingdom since his departure, but the news isn't good. Rai originally ran because he was accused of offing the Grand Master, the leader of all clans. After his escape, the Grand Master's daughter, who we know as the Lord Lady, became the king of all the clans. Her heart's desire is to avenge her father, and she believes Ray to be his assassin. After the eternal sleep of the Elder King, most of his entourage decided to sacrifice themselves too, on the basis that there is no life without their master. This gave the young people the opportunity to rule, which is a disaster. For example, Sarah, who was preoccupied with her little teenage love affair, is the leader of her clan. Poor, silly Chan wants to win her heart, but she is the true definition of a girl boss. It really was in his best interest to forget that Giga Stacy. Thanks to the backstory, things are getting clearer. Except for one thing, big homie Franken. Just who is Franken, where does he come from, and what made him follow Rai? All these questions remain unanswered for now. The only hint we get from Gedjutel is that Franken excommunicated several nobles in a famous massacre, so he doesn't trust him at all. Luckily, the show decides to answer some of our questions with a flashback to when Franken lived in Lucadonia. He used to live near the villages of the nobles and was an ordinary human who was neither modified nor noble, but he grew fed up with the arrogance of the nobles and the way they treated humans, so he took up a new profession: hunting and torturing nobles for sport. It gave him great pleasure. Kinda feels like we need a Franken to deal with the ultra-rich of today. His notoriety reached the Great King, who asked Gedjutel and Rhaegar to bring Franken to him alive as he wanted to talk to him and later decide what to do with him. Franken is no fool and definitely not for the weak, so all the king's soldiers sent to capture Franken get popped on the spot. This forces the two clan leaders, Gedjutel and Rhaegar, themselves to go out and confront Franken. After some quick introductions, Franken refuses to meet the High King because he despises him and all nobles, seeing them as a bunch of clowns who only claim to be defending humans, but treat them as lesser, weaker beings and manipulate and control them for fun. After Franken treats them as arrogantly as nobles treat mortals, Rhaegar decides to teach him a lesson. Foolish mistake, cause Franken can walk it like he talks it. Franken's strength takes them all by surprise. Rhaegar summons a soul weapon thinking that it will put Franken quickly in his place, not knowing that Frankie Boy has the ability to summon a similar weapon, surprise Mutha Sukka, and return the attack. Gedjutel, shocked at the turn of events, decides to intervene. It's not normal for a beautiful blonde human who looks like a BTS singer to beat two clan leaders who are in possession of soul weapons. This would not just destroy their prestige and pride among their clan, but also this extreme amount of power would completely consume Franken's soul. But even them, tag teaming could not stop Franken. He manages to escape with some serious injuries and returns home disappointed. He had assumed that he could repel any attack and not have the weapon overwhelm him. But he was wrong. To Franken's surprise, when he enters his room, he finds Rai standing by his window awaiting his return. Just a quick note, at that time Ray was close to the king, who was constantly inviting him to stay in the palace and even offered him the best accommodation. But Rai always refused, preferring to be alone. As Franken was raspberry foaming heavily from the force of the attack, Gedjutel and Rhaegar were able to follow his foaming trail home, where they informed Rai of the Lord's orders and asked him to bring him to the Great King. But Ray refuses and says that Franken belongs to him and turns him into his assistant and assures them that he works for him and no one has the right to touch him without his permission, thus saving him from Gedjutel's clutches. Franken remains in Ra's mansion for 5 years, training as hard as he can to become one of the strongest noble warriors, but Gedjutel keeps asking Ray to let Franken meet the Great King, so Ray agrees to repeat the request to Franken, who finally agrees. After 5 whole years, Franken goes to meet the Great King, who is happy to finally meet him. Even though the Great King is feared by all the leaders, he looks like a mere servant in the palace. The point is that the insignificant and boring king couldn't find anything interesting to talk about with Franken, even though he had waited 5 whole years to speak to him, so the king starts chatting about Rai. The king and Rai share a strange relationship. They should have a better bond. Rai doesn't want to be bro besties and always evades him. Thus the king advised Franken for being close to Rai. The king then asks Franken to form a blood pact with Rai so that he can become his consort. But everyone in the hall objects to this decision, although no one can publicly disagree with the Lord King. The other nobles despised Franken, as he is first and foremost a noble hunter who spent his whole life hunting and torturing nobles to satisfy his anger. Rai is technically the second in command of the kingdoms, and even some of the leaders respect him more than the king. But when he associates himself with Franken, Rai's status and prestige may disappear, and he will become their enemy. Franken doesn't worry about that nonsense at all. He's only loyal to Rai because he healed him when he was injured and saved him from the clan leaders who would have unalived him. As for the rest of the nobles, he still thinks they are lowly, jealous, condescending, and too arrogant to care about. When Franken leaves the Great King's palace, he makes many more new enemies, and one of them demands to duel. He wants to prove to everyone that Franken is too weak to unite with Rai in a raspberry foam pact. Of course, Franken accepts the challenge because he wanted to add some excitement to his quiet life in Rai's mansion. The jealous nobleman underestimates Franken's strength until Franken summons his soul weapon. The problem that Franken always faces is his inability to control his power when using the soul weapon, so he easily injures the insecure, weak little nobleman. But Franken gets overwhelmed by his own strength again, and only Rai's intervention using the heavy flow plasma technique prevents him from going overboard. Only Rai is able to control him and returns him to the mansion. That evening, Franken initiates a raspberry foam pact by slitting his wrist and dripping his foam into Rai's tea. Sounds like some kind of freaky magic voodoo, but okay. He and Rai are joined together by the pact. The nobles are about to lose their uppity minds as Franken is already their enemy and Rai is now an ally of their enemy. Now we know Franken's story, we return again to the current day, in which Jejutel is still asking Rai to consider returning to their kingdom. He argues that if he is innocent of eliminating the king, he should return to prove his innocence. But Franken tells him that Rai refuses to leave this life filled with love, friendship, and family to return to the boring, monotonous, stuck-up, lonely life of the nobles. After saying goodbye to his grandson Regis and asking Sarah to take good care of him since she is also a clan leader now, Jejutel decides to return alone. Jejutel returns to report to the Lord Lady and tells her that he hasn't found any trace of Rai and that Sarah and Regis are still looking into it, but made a mistake by not reporting back. The Lord Lady refuses to believe him, and tries to take over his mind, but when that fails, she imprisons him and orders one of the chiefs, Rejak, to bring Sarah to her, so that she can break her mind and read her memories to find out just what the heck is going on. But Ryle volunteers himself to go fetch Sarah, because his obsession for her has gone to his head and he thinks being a psycho kidnapper stalker is the way to her heart. You know, typical red pill stuff. The Lord Lady agrees to the little weirdo's request. While the students had a free study period and no teachers are around, Chan tries as per usual to flirt with Sarah, who as we know has a stalker on the way, so things will probably get a little bit spicy. All seems to be going well until the security guards notice that something strange is happening. All the students seem to be under mind control, an act that can only come from a very powerful person. Shortly afterward, Ryle literally jumps into the scene. He quickly attacks M21, stabbing him deeply with his fingers, gross, and knocking him to the ground. He warns the other guards to stay away from him because he hates modified humans, and if any of them get in his way, he will delete them immediately. Before things can get any weirder, Regis and Sarah arrive, and they ask what his little weird butt is doing here. As soon as he spots Sarah, little bro activates pathetic desperation mode, excitedly asking what's good as he hadn't seen her since he went to prison right after his little boy-looking butt proposed to her. And Ryle tells her his sob story. Apparently they locked him up alone in the dark for 10 years. You wouldn't say he was in prison for that long as he looks like he is less than 10 years old. Also, what kind of weird isolation torture do these nobles do to their kids? No wonder little bro went full psycho. Apparently the only thing that kept him from giving himself the eternal sleep was obsessing about Sarah's fine butt. He keeps asking her to come back to the kingdom with him, but she refuses his demands. Regis tries to distract the psycho child, but Ryle easily overpowers him, lifts him high in the air and tells him not to butt in if he can't back it up. Okay, gangster Beatty. He reminds Regis that he can off him anytime he pleases. Psycho Beatty is hardcore. He invites Sarah to join him and go back to the kingdom, but she politely declines. He threatens her in a subtle way, but Sarah doesn't fall for the okey doke. Then Psycho Beatty, sorry Ryle, runs away. Strangely, M21's injury suddenly gets worse. Seems like he exists solely in this show to get beaten up. Any new baddie that arrives isn't considered strong until he beats up the M21 and puts him in the hospital for a few weeks. Anyway, with M21's life-threatening injury, everyone has a lot of questions. How is little titty baby Ryle so powerful? Luckily, Sarah and Regis fill us in on just what's good with Buddy Boy. He is a pureblood whose family are all noble. He is also the baby brother of Rajak, one of the current clan leaders. 10 years ago, he proposed to Sarah, but she rejected the loser for many reasons, including his looks. The important thing is that after her rejection, little bro completely lost it and destroyed everything around them, including burning down the perimeter of Sarah's house. Rajak locked his loony little brother up and threw away the key. But 10 years later, that little pyromaniac is back and looking for his victim. The reason he was more powerful than Regis is because Psycho Boy is double Regis' age. And Regis is apparently 199 years old. He's a super old geezer, to quote Tao. Franken isn't a big fan of nobles and their trashy behavior. He still thinks that all nobles don't deserve to live, except for Ray, of course. So he spends his time trying to heal M21 and give full health checks to Tao and Takio. Tao and Takeo are both ashamed that Ryle was able to so easily injure their friend, as they were completely powerless to stop his attack on them. They ask Franken to increase their strength and power to help them protect each other better. Oddly enough, the modified humans Tao and Takeo can't stand what happened to them, while Regis, the heir to his clan's throne, only concern is for Sarah, even though Ryle almost choked him out on the school's tiles. Sarah tells Regis not to worry, as Psycho Boy is a virgin beta in her eyes. She tells him she's off to bed, but sneaks off to tell Ryle that he's gotta go. She wants nothing to do with his pathetic butt. Unfortunately, this only makes him want her more. Accept your rejection, beta. Dude has a major superiority complex, but Sarah wants absolutely nothing to do with his racist behind. She chooses humans over him and will choose them 1,000 times. For all eternity is her exact words. Of course, Ryle can't accept this and his eyes start to glow in a menacing way. However, Franken arrives and volunteers to fight Ryle, since Rai can't fight Ryle as it would reveal his location to the nobles, and although Rai was afraid that his friend Franken wasn't strong enough to go against a pureblood, he lifts his seal and allows him to fight Ryle. But first, Franken makes fun of Ryle because of his strange, boyish appearances. At the beginning of the fight, Ryle can't imagine that a human like Franken can be so strong and fast. Even his clan's sole weapon doesn't work on Franken, because Ryle is not the leader of his clan, but just the clan leader's baby brother. Then Ryle uses a soul weapon of his own, but even that isn't enough to defeat Franken, who finally summons his soul weapon. A massive explosion is heard throughout the city, but no one knows that it's Franken in the middle of a great conflict. Only Rai, who sent Franken to fight for Sarah. Sarah tries to intervene to stop the madness. She tells Ryle to leave or she'll join in the fight against him. Dude is flabbergasted by her constant refusal and rejection of him. That's when he decides to show the royal decree from the Lord Lady. Sarah has no choice but to obey her Lord Lady's command and leaves with Ryle. Franken hurries back to Ray to tell him what happened, and that Gejutel is in prison. It seems he has remained loyal to them and hasn't revealed Ra's whereabouts. Therefore, Rai comes up with a plan. They are going back to Lucadonia. Of course, the Lord Lady knows Rai intimately, having studied with Gejutel while Rai was the nobleman closest to her father, the king. Somehow that started the bad blood between them. Back to the present day, Sarah finally arrives with Ryle, who introduces her to the Lord Lady to begin her interrogation. The Lord Lady's questions are straightforward. Has Sarah ever encountered a suspicious noble during her time with the humans who could be the traitor in the coffin? Before Sarah can answer, she first asks about Gejutel, and the Lord Lady tells her that he is in prison under suspicion of giving a false report. Sarah declines to answer. The Lord Lady uses torture techniques to force her to answer, but Sarah remains steadfast until Ryle screams of her innocence and tells the Lord Lady that Sarah can unalive from the torture, that he too had gone to the same place, and that the only suspicious person he saw was a blonde BTS singer who courses Franken. The Lord Lady stops torturing Sarah, but orders her to be thrown in jail and to continue torturing Gejutel until one of them confesses. Lord Lady has an obvious torture kink, and she is suspicious AF, if you ask me. At the same time, unbeknownst to the nobles in their kingdom, an airplane has flown in with all of Sarah's friends who plan to rescue her. The most nervous of them all is Regis, who feels that Sarah might die and keeps blaming Franken for not stopping Ryle and letting him kidnap her. Regis, you were there too. Why didn't you stop, Psycho Boy? Oh, I forgot. Regis is much weaker and can't even touch Ryle. Second, Sarah is the one who acted like a model citizen when she saw the royal decree, bent her knee and obeyed, so he has nothing to do with what happened. Franken has a different kind of mission for the three guards, M21, Tao, and Takeo. He gives them pills to increase their strength and tells them that Rael, who beat them easy peasy, is one of the weakest people in the noble kingdom. He's not even a clan leader, so they have to be careful because he doesn't have time to heal them if there should be a battle. He also informed them that he, Rai, and Regis would be away for a while, and they have to be careful because they are the sole protectors of the mansion and the school. While on the plane, Franken tells everyone to prepare as they have just entered the noble kingdom's airspace. As there is no airport, they'll be jumping out the plane. Brah. At that time, Sarah is in her cell, and some of the nobles are in disbelief at what the Lord Lady is doing. Sarah is the leader of her clan and Gejutal the leader of his. Also, he used to be close to the previous king and was close to the Lord Lady as well. There's no way he would betray her, and the same goes for Sarah. If she really was a traitor, she wouldn't have obeyed the command to return. Their discussion is interrupted by a messenger informing them that a plane has crashed in the sea near Lucadonia's coast. The nobles send their knights to check out just what the heck is going on before reporting it to the lady. Meanwhile, Rai, Regis, and Franken are on their way to retrieve the most important war weapon, the sword of the great King Ragnarok. Regis is too cowardly to enter a zone known as the Forbidden Place, so Rai tells him to watch their backs and stay outside. Strangely, the Forbidden Zone is Ra's mansion and grounds. While Regis waits outside, the knights attack him and he manages to hold them off for a while, up until they realize it's Regis. Just before things completely fall apart, Tao, Takeo, and M21, who conveniently decided that protecting the city was boring AEF compared to fighting nobles, arrive and manage to take out all the knights using modern weapons and free Regis from them. Now that the three guards had gathered, Rai decides to explain the whole truth to them so that neither they nor we will be confused. Thanks for that, Rai. The great king is not the most powerful noble, but the noblest is the single unparalleled most powerful noble who stands apart from the rest, and that of course is Rai, but he is accused of killing the king. He doesn't deny it or explain it or fight for his innocence. Rai does give the guards a choice. If they want, they can join him, but they'll have to endure it to the end. Of course, they agree to help him because they all owe him and respect him in their own ways. Rai decides that before any confrontations or wars break out, he has to meet the Lord Lady and see how far she is willing to go in this conflict. But the Lord Lady is shocked to learn that strangers have entered her kingdom, including Regis. And since Regis is Gejutel's grandson, she decides to put him into eternal sleep. All the leaders of the other clans object to her decision. Gejutel is the elder of the clans and has raised them all, even raised the Lord Lady herself, so she decides to give him one last chance. Either he tells her the truth or goes to sleep forever. All the way to the dungeon, she thinks about what happened that day with Rai. She had been working hard all day and studying with Gejutel to become a good Lord Lady. That day, she decides to speak to her father about something important, but she is surprised to find him sitting with Rai and asking him what he thought about becoming his successor in the kingdom. This increased the hatred in her heart as she had worked so hard to become her father's successor, and suddenly her dream was evaporating. I knew this bee was jealous AF. The Lord Lady arrives at the dungeon. She promises to spare his life if he tells her the truth. Gejutel trusts her and confesses to her that he met with Rai. As he has confessed, the Lord Lady decides to put his old bum to bed. Go to sleep, big homie. This is a lesson in trust. Never trust anyone, especially if it is a woman who tells you to trust her. Sarah takes advantage of the circumstances and escapes from her cell to help Gejutel, who will be unjustly assassinated, all because Madame Lord Lady wants her revenge on Rai, who she believes was about to take her position. But she only suspects that he unalived her father. She has no proof. If you ask me, I think her jealousy caused her to commit patricide. But let's wait and see. On Sarah's way, she meets Rosaria, who is the leader of another clan and one of the Lord Lady's most loyal attendees. Of course, Rosaria orders Sarah back to her cell and to forget about Gejutel. In return, she won't tell anyone about Sarah's attempt to escape. But Sarah rejects this Dumbo deal and decides to fight Rosaria. She has nothing to fear. Rosaria is a clan leader, but so is Sarah. Rosaria has a soul weapon, but so does Sarah. Regis, on the other hand, is on his way to find and save Sarah. He assumes she's still locked up. En route, he comes across Rael, yes, the same little psycho who had given him a beatdown before. Ryle gave him two options: get locked up or get beat up. At first, Regis is afraid of Ryle, especially after he told him that Gedjutel, his grandfather, is a traitor and would be executed, meaning he too would be executed. A traitor's family always joins them in eternal sleep, especially as the Lord Lady has no time to be investigating each family member individually. That's some biblical punishment. Lucky for Regis, he is not alone. He is accompanied by M21, who tells Regis to go and rescue Sarah, and he will take care of the baby dwarf named Ryle. Unexpectedly, M21 manages to deliver a quick, powerful blow to Ryle, and Ryle can't believe it, as this is the same guard who almost died from a single blow from Ryle just a few days ago. Back to Sarah, who's still in a powerful battle against Rosaria. When she realizes how Sarah has evolved and become her equal, she decides to use her true power, which is Blood Witch, but Sarah, despite having difficulties, remains steadfast. The confrontation was divided into 3 fronts, all of which were sub-fronts since Rai had yet to engage anyone. The first front, where M21 is fighting Crazy Ryle, the second front is Sarah's battle against the Blood Witch, and the last front is Regis, who is discovered by 2 clan leaders when he tries to sneak into the place where Gedjutel is located, but finds a clan leader who's like a brother to him, blocking the way. Carius initially tells him to run away and leave the place. Once Gedjutel proves his innocence, he can return and live his life free and clear. But Regis refuses to be a coward and tells Carius that he trusts Gedjutel and knows he hasn't done anything wrong. He came back to save his grandfather, who has spent his entire life advising the kings and even protected and educated the Lord Lady. And in return for all he's done, they plan to execute him for a single mistake. Carius takes Regis at his word and makes a deal with him. If he wants to save Gedjutel, he has to be strong enough to get past Carius, who remains loyal to the Lord. But if Regis manages to get a single scratch on Carius, he will assist him in freeing Gedjutel. Back to M21, Ryle manages to turn the fight in his favor and also manages to locate Tao and Teiko and beats them until all 3 of them fall to the ground, paralyzed. That's when Ryle decides to end them once and for all. At that critical moment, his brother enters the scene, chastising him. As the brothers beef it out, Franken struts in. He realized that the guards were no match for a pureblood like Ryle. As soon as Ryle sees Franken, he blusters some BS pretending to have outmatched him. Franken pokes several holes in him as response, and the little titty baby falls to his knees, raspberry foaming all over the place. Rajak steps up and tells his little brother to shut his face while he takes over. Rajak is the current clan leader and has true courage and humility. The conflict finally begins between Franken and Rajak is shocked by Franken's strength and speed, as well as his possession of a soul weapon. How can a human possess a soul weapon? We'd also like to know. It was then that Rajak understands why Franken is not an opponent to be taken lightly, and why Rai has made him his successor. While the battles rage, the Lord Lady sits at her father's grave and tells him that she's had enough. Since Gedjutel has betrayed her, she has decided to off him, even though she knows that the High King revered Gedjutel and never doubted him. Back to Regis, who is suffering at Carius' hands, yet he is still determined to fight until his last breath to save his grandfather. Carius keeps telling him to run away and come back later because it is impossible to defeat him no matter what he tries. Regis still refuses to give up. You can do it, Regis. Carius decides to end the fight and give Regis some bro hugs to comfort him. Regis, being a clever sneak, asks Carius to remember to uphold his promise of assistance and lightly punches him, thereby managing to get at least one hit in. Carius is left pleasantly surprised by the trickery. Back to the hysterically jealous Lord Lady, who was ready to immediately begin the trial. Her first question to Sarah was, "Why did you escape from your cell?" When Sarah admits to trying to help Gedjutel, the Lord decides to send her to eternal sleep as well. Vindictive B. Gedjutel has had enough. He tells the court that the Lord only has a grudge against Rai because he was going to succeed her father, but she has no proof that he harmed the king. Also, she sucks as a ruler, as she couldn't even unite the nobles cause each clan has broken away. She doesn't even know what's going on in her own kingdom, because superhuman Franken is excommunicating her men as they speak. In the end, he admits that he deserves eternal slumber, but only because he hasn't educated her well enough to ascend the throne with her bird brain. Gedjutel finishes his speech, and the Lord decides to send him to eternal slumber with the Sword of Ragnarok. Just before the sword touches him, Rai finally enters the hall, walking very slowly, totally uninterested in the bird-brained, hysterical Lord Lady. Rai doesn't intend to waste too much time talking to the lady. He asks her what she intends to do with Sarah and Gejutel. When she tells him that she's going to send them into eternal slumber, he denies her and wants to fight her. Some clan leaders stand up for her and challenge Rai themselves. The first of these amateurs is the hulking, scarred-up Ki-Ru. None of his attacks land, and without the slightest bit of strength, Rai easily dispatches him and throws him off the battlefield. The second to nominate themselves was Rosaria, who tries her best to use Mensa's magic and hemoglobin fields, but Rai is a period master and manages to destroy her red body fluid field unscathed. The third fighter is Ludus, commander of the Kingdom Defense Forces and leader of the Knights in his spare time. He tries to use the invisibility cube to banish Rai, but he easily destroys the cube, forcing the Lord to come down and fight him. Rai challenges the Lord knowing she is afraid to face him because she knows he can beat that bum. This infuriates her. She gathers all her strength and strikes with all her might, but is a weak little pussycat when compared to Rai. He tells her to activate all her Lady Time powers too and fight him for real unless she's a scary cat. She loses, kneels beside her sword and cries. It was her dream to be chosen as her father's successor, and yet he still favored Rai. When the clan chiefs see their lady in that state, they decide to sacrifice themselves for her and fight Rai one last time. They're about to jump him. The Lord gathers herself and knows that she cannot win until she masters the use of the power bestowed upon all lords. Her pack of clan leaders jump Rai and try to even the score, but Rai has already prepared for this and keeps collecting fields of plasma around him to finish them all off in one fell swoop. The Lord and Rai overexert themselves in the battle. Then Rai shows her that the sword she has is not the only Ragnarok in existence. He has one too. Suddenly, the two swords unite to reveal a video message left by the Great King, showing everyone the truth. He seems to be wearing a wedding dress. That's weird but okay. Basically, he chose to end his own life. He chose this because he saw that the lives of nobles were insignificant and there was no development, no evolution like humans have. Nobles live a long, dull life. After he made this decision, he confided in Gejutel and commanded him not to tell anyone under any circumstances. Of course, as soon as the king passed, the haters ignited vengeance in the Lord Lady's heart by spreading lies and rumors blaming Rai for her father's demise. Since she was a silly, jealous goose, she believed them and made it her life's mission to capture him. After the truth becomes clear, the clan leaders beg for her pardon and the Lord Lady pardons all who she was about to put to bed. All the remaining clans assured her of their loyalty, including Rai, who gave her the unified sword of Ragnarok this time. He decides to return back to Japan, as the noble kingdom now has a well-informed boss lady who's less hysterical and no longer jealous and obsessing over an innocent overpowered noblesse. And so ends our story. I still don't know why an ancient overpowered raspberry foam lover wants to hang out with teenagers, but I guess that's more fun than being an immortal multi-billionaire surrounded by servants and wealth. Or maybe he just loves ramen. This is your anime sensei signing off.